So going to the part of the big work that you do in the world, which is partnership work, which is building these partners with the school, with the community, with different families and different family groups. How do you build inclusive and joyful partnerships?
How do you build? There are some areas of common ground with all people groups. And then there are some distinction depending on, who you're working with, who you're building with, right? And from an institutional standpoint, I bring my full self into my institution because I do believe that me operating and functioning in the full self, like you hired me for a reason. I do what I do, how I do it. And I'm comfortable in my skin. And I think that helps the whole institution and other people around me, colleagues, to be who they are and bring what they bring to the good work that we are all called to do together. I learned a long time ago working in policy, people do things for people, not necessarily institutions, right? So that relationship building piece is really important, and taking the time to do that. And then coming to an institution where relationship with external stakeholders haven't necessarily been the priority or the focus of the work, again, because of the mission, not because it's not important, but just, that orientation to get to results and to data sometimes can leave the people things out and the relationship building. And building relationships, which is all community partnership work takes time, it takes effort, and it takes one of the things that I think has been a different way of doing in this institution, because again, it's part of who I am, is that we show up in community just to show up sometimes. It's not necessarily what you can do for me. Not every relationship is about strategy, right? It's about doing what's right and doing what's best for kids and community. And sometimes that's just showing up, being in the room, not necessarily always taking a leadership position. It's just sitting at the table. Sometimes it's getting up and giving somebody else your seat at the table. Those things always return and pay dividends in partnership work, I found over the years. And so sometimes it goes against the grain of how institutions and people with institutional mindsets work. But again, if you've been doing the work long enough, you know the benefits and the values of building relationships. I will admit, and you and I have talked about this several times through the years, because I am such a relationship-oriented person naturally, I have had to do a lot of work around boundaries, right? And around defining relationships and having realistic expectations. That's part of the work as well, but it's important work, right? And so in partnership work and working with different partners, it's about building, good relationships to do good work. It's about keeping students and families first in the work that we do, always letting that be the North Star of the decisions that we make. And then again, being inclusive is really around, again, listening and doing with, not just to and for. So our communities as partners in the work versus just objects or recipients of services provision and all that stuff. So, these data points are real people, real communities. And so I'm always that voice at the table and always, centering myself around that. So yeah, that's a kind of a balcony level view of the work.
Yeah, but it's lovely the amount of clear places I can enter into thinking about being better and doing better in partnerships from hearing you speak, from that what is the common ground? What is the common purpose? And then what are the differences? What are the different needs? And being able to have both knowing and acknowledging there's differences, there's different needs, there's different ways of interacting, there's different ways of connecting, but there's a common place for everybody, a common ground for everybody, and keeping kids and families central. I love the, like, just going to be in community and not having every relationship be a strategy and every moment be a strategy is, I think, very powerful takeaway of, like you were saying, you bringing your whole self and authentic self to work. I feel like that's who you are. You really want to be there. You want to be in space with folks. There's this way of doing partnership work when you're in an institution where you're coming in always with an agenda and you're always having to move something forward. And I really hear that clear ask to show up differently, or that offer to show up differently, that you do already embody. So I think that that's really wonderful.